This episode is brought to you by Ardan Labs Education. Sign up today to learn advanced concepts in Go, Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, and more. Visit ardanlabs.com/education for more information.
Hi, welcome to the Ardan Labs podcast, and our special guest today, all the way from Nigeria, is Henry Erabor. Hey, Henry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's a privilege to be here. An honor, actually.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I found your name on Twitter. I like to go through the Golang tag, and I saw some kind of cool stuff that you were doing on Twitter, and I thought, I got to talk to Henry. I think Henry would be a great guest for the podcast. And I am really completely clueless about life in Nigeria. I've been to Kenya, I got to Nairobi, and that was an amazing experience. So I'm gonna have a lot of questions for you. This podcast is kind of really about your journey through tech. Seeing you on the Go feed was really awesome. And so why don't you give everybody like a minute or two to tell them a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now.
Presently, I'm employed as a software engineer in a company in Nigeria. So we use Golang as the technology for the backend and development. And at the same time, we used a couple of other tools like GraphQL, Postgres, and AWS for the management of all our cloud services and the likes. But my journey into Go actually started.
Yeah, no. Don't tell me this yet. I'm going to take you there. I got questions. We're not going to start there. But what is it that your company? What does your company do? What is it that your company does? What are the problems that you're working on?
I would say we provide a kind of customer relationship management system whereby companies that provide loans give us their customers to try and see how we can help to collect the loans that they have collected, the customers that collected from them. So we kind of provide a debt recovery system, and the aim is to ensure that all this is managed from the agents that are in charge of reaching out to the clients, to the respective customers, and also to the partners that, in other words, have a whole lot of agents under them.
All right, so you have all the tech related to help these agents talk to the customers to try to get some of this debt repaid. Okay, so I want to jump into the time machine right now and try to bring you back. And one of my favorite questions to ask every guest is, what's your very first memory that pops into your head of you working with or using a computer?
Getting close to 40. I'm not yet 40, I'm 30. I became 38 around June 7.
But how old were you when you saw that first computer and got to get your hands on it? How old were you?
I was close to 10. So then, the first time I saw the computer was during one of the computer studies classes. So we all went, that was in primary school. So we all went straight into the computer room, and you see all the computers lined up. I don't think I'd ever seen a laptop then. Just saw a computer and I saw the box. So I was like, this is more like a TV. So I thought this was more like a television screen, but just that it had a keyboard. So in a way I could relate it with a typewriter that had a screen. So, and the first screenshot, I can still remember the first screenshot I saw in my head was like in more or less like the command prompt environment. That was way back then. I think someone was actually trying to switch on the system while we're walking through the computer room, and I saw that this looks a bit different. It was just, I think the background was black, and I was seeing a blue writings, like a dark blackboard where you're writing with chalk or white chalk. So that's more how I would describe it. So I just looked at it and wow, this looks like something where you can just keep on typing things on, or like a TV screen where you type things on. That's basically my description.
You're 10 years old when you see that first computer. It looks like a TV with a keyboard. What did they have you doing on those? Were they having you do like word processing? Were they having you play games on those computers at 10? What was it that they asked you to do in that class? That was a computer class at 10 years old.
Yeah, the computer class was more of, let's see how a computer looked like after seeing it in our books. So we needed to see it, and we were instructed not to touch anything. That was like the first session. So we walked through the computer room, and it showed us this is a computer. So this is the monitor, and everybody keeps making that same mistake. This is the CPU, whereas that's the storage system unit. So this is the CPU.
So that must have been driving you crazy. Like, they're like, here's a computer, and you're not allowed to touch it. Just look at it.
Yeah.
Do they eventually let you put your hands on it and do anything with it at this point at 10 years old?
No. So, another point in time, we needed to go into the computer room, and take note, we are all going in batch, like a group. So no one is allowed to go on an adventure, to go and sightsee. No one is allowed to leave the group to go and see for himself, or to go and do any other stuff. We are going as a group. The teacher is monitoring us. And this is when you go into the museum, like group of students going into the museum, and the teachers are like, this is a computer. So this is the CPU, this is the monitor. So you are not really allowed to touch. But there was a certain time when we went in and we got in, we were like, okay, 5 people will be pressing the keyboard and maybe compose a sentence on the word processor then. So they're not among the chosen 5. That's it. So good. So they just started up with trying to make us see the computer, aside from seeing it in our book, seeing it drawn in our textbooks, and then have a feel of, okay, touching the keyboard, not that we get seated on it and then carry out an adventure on it, no. So I guess.
How does school work in Nigeria? Do you have, like in the US, you have elementary school until 6th grade and junior high school to 8, and then you have like high school going into like 12th grade where you're like 17, 18, and then you can choose university. How does it work in Nigeria?
We have the kindergarten section. That's more like the school that people will all refer to as a preschool, like kindergarten. Then that's more like a provision made by private schools. But the normal basic school system itself, that's the kindergarten actually is before the primary school, but that's, it's not for, it's more or less like something before the school. But the main basic school itself starts from primary 1. So we have a primary section 1 to 6, but currently now no more 6. So some schools, based on the schools, the structure of the schools, some schools could be just primary 1 to 5. Then after which, the school I went was a private school, so it was from primary 1 to 5. After which, you have the secondary school. The secondary school is now junior secondary school classes, which are 3 sections. We have JS1. The abbreviation for junior secondary school is JXS. So I'm saying JSS1. Then you have JSS 1 to 3, that's just JSS sections. Then after the JSS sections, you have the senior secondary section, that's SSS, senior secondary school sections. Senior secondary school, we will call it layer, categories. So they are also into 3 sections too. You have SS1, then SS2, then SS3. So these 6 levels altogether make up the secondary school. That's the schools the school an individual will go to after he's done with the primary school. I mean,
So how old are you? How old are you when you finish all of this secondary schooling? Are you 16, 17, 18? Are you younger?
Yeah, when I finished secondary school, I was around 16, 17 years.
Okay.
And after which, then I needed to start making plans to get into the university.
But I want to stay in your secondary schooling, because it sounded like some of the secondary schooling had specific, in the US they call these the charter schools, where it's a very specific towards a topic. So when you're in your secondary schooling, are you at that point are you learning computers a little bit more? Are you doing programming at that point? Are they teaching any sort of software development in the secondary schooling when you're in school?
As at that point in time when I was in school, there was no provision for programming. Although we still had what we call computer studies, but really no strong preferential treatment was given to subjects related to that. The sciences are much more focused on courses, subjects like chemistry, physics, biology, maths, further maths, and little or no attention was given to computer study or computer science as at that point in time. But presently, nowadays, the basic school structure has been changed. Schools, even as from primary school, they started doing a little bit of programming. Will I say in Q Basic? Yeah, precisely in secondary school from the first year in secondary school, programming has been introduced, but it's more or less like pure Q Basic command prompt programming. That's the structure at present.
So when you graduate secondary schooling, you're 16. What year is that? What year is that when you graduated?
I graduated in the year 2000.
2000. Okay, so in 2000 you finish your secondary schooling. You're like 17 years old. What are your interests other than school at that point? Are you playing music? Are you playing sports? Are you into something? Because right now you're not really doing computer stuff because it's just not accessible to you, right?
Yeah, that's a very good question. At that point in time, I had that interest in football, which we call soccer in the US. That's a hobby, and I think I kind of love the sports I love the most. And I played table tennis then also. Then aside from that, there is that hunger. I just wanted to go in this line. I always wanted to study an engineering course like electrical electronic engineering, because I kind of love the sciences. So I didn't really have a hunger towards the computer science or computer related courses. So I actually had interest in studying either electrical electronic engineering or computer engineering, not computer science.
All right, so let me interrupt you then. So as you're finishing, so while you're like 14, 15, 16, or 15 through 17, you're playing soccer. You're kind of doing that part-time, but from the time that you saw the computer, your passion seemed to be to understand how all that hardware worked. It's like it was a magic box, and you wanted to understand the hardware side of things. And so I imagine then as you're thinking about what's next after your secondary schooling, you're thinking about university and you're thinking about getting into like, I guess, an electrical engineering degree, something like that.
Yeah, very correct.
And the university did you apply to a bunch of universities locally and throughout the country, or were the options basically just that one? Like, tell me about how the university works there and what you were thinking in terms of where you wanted to go and your options.
I actually had a couple of universities in mind based on my desire. I actually wanted to study either, like I said, electronic engineering or computer engineering precisely. So I applied for a couple of universities. So there's a body called Joint Admission Matriculation Board. It's actually called JAM for short abbreviation. Yeah, that's the abbreviation, JAM, Joint Admission Matriculation Board. So you do the exams, and if you meet, you meet a cutoff mark. They don't provide you your score. Your score will be like, if I score 213, that means if I applied for computer engineering in a university, take for instance, University of Lagos, and computer engineering's cutoff mark is actually higher than that, let's say 250, and that means I will not be able to get that course. So in other words, I would miss that year and possibly prepare again for the next year. So we have choices of university. You have a first choice or second choice. So the second choice university would be, there are about three kinds of universities in Nigeria. You have a federal university, you have a state-owned university, then you have private-owned institutions. So if your cutoff mark does not meet the first choice, you use the second choice option. And if your cutoff mark still doesn't meet the choice for the second option of your university, then you wait till the next year. So that's all. If you have enough cash, if your parents are buoyant enough, they can send you to a private university.
So, all right. So what I'm hearing is you got to take this test, and based on your score, you get to choose one of these top-end universities, and then if the score is not high enough, you get an option for the second, and if the score is not high enough, you're not going to university. Is that university, based on your score, is that paid for by the state, or you still have to pay out of pocket to go to university?
I didn't get that.
Is university free if you get a high enough score, or you still have to pay?
No. You still have to pay. You still have to pay. You still have to pay your way through. I don't think there's any free university in Nigeria at present, so you pay. Okay, yeah. I think the beautiful thing then was that the federal universities are a little bit cheaper because they are federal universities. They are owned by the federal government of Nigeria, so their fees a bit cheaper. So that's why people get to try to. There's that rush to go get into a federal university because the fee could be cheaper when compared to a state-owned university. Yeah, so that's.
Gotcha. What would have, so I'm assuming that you got the score you needed and you went to university. What do people do if they don't get the high enough score? What is your option? At that, you go and you learn a trade? Is that what happens?
No, you could actually go for a lower course. I mean, there was this course hierarchy, I would say. Will I say? Yeah, course hierarchy. Computer engineering was like topmost course in most conventional universities then. So you have computer engineering, you have electronic engineering. So the cutoff mark for this course is actually high. So you could be looking at many of those federal schools setting their cutoff mark for such courses to 280, and here you're scoring 224. You didn't get to that cutoff mark. So they will opt to give you, maybe you won't study. They will opt to give you biochemistry, or they give you chemistry, or they give you, do you want to study physics? Those courses are courses that they feel your cut-off mark, they feel with your cut-off mark you should be able to do well in them. So that was a state system in those days.
So it sounds like you got the score you need, though, right? You got the score that you needed, and you got into electrical engineering. Which is that like a 4-year degree at that point? You go to university for 4 more years?
No, it's 5 years. The school I attended is 5 years. Why? Because they give you BTech. The degree is a Bachelor of Technology degree, which I would say is much more practical oriented compared to you having a BSc. So my journey through my journey into the university itself is a bit I say it's a bit tricky. At that point in time, when I needed to get admission into university, I tried that particular exams like twice or thrice. Still, I couldn't meet up with the cut-off marks for some of those courses. So, but by then, many of those universities started other means of you getting admission rather than use a central organized body as a means of getting into the university. So the school I attended, Federal University of Technology, Akure, provided another means of getting into the university, and that was through what we call a pre-degree course. So you enroll for a pre-degree course, you do well in the pre-degree course, you get the course of your choice. So I started up with a pre-degree course, and it was from the pre-degree course, and I did this. During the pre-degree course, I still did this exam again, this JAMB exams. And I enrolled for the pre-degree course in the hope that the school had a computer engineering course, not knowing that the school had computer science. So they were like, okay, this guy is applying for computer engineering. We don't have computer engineering. Oh, it's a mistake. He made a mistake. So I guess he meant computer science. So I was hoping to go to the engineering section. Then I found myself in.
So you got into computer science kind of as I don't want to say a mistake, but just not realizing that that's that university. So you're living at home at this point, or you're living on your own when you're going to the university? How's that working? Do you have a job while you're doing all this?
At that point in time, I really didn't have a job. It's not, currently now, I would say, I think the thought didn't cross my mind to possibly learn a trade to kind of be able to cater for myself. But at that point in time, my parents were responsible for the bills. So my mind was, I need to get to university. I need to get into the university to study a course. My mates are already into the universities, and you are not yet into university because you couldn't meet the cutoff marks, and so you won't have that time to even sit down and say you want to start up. You want to start a trade, or you want to start because you believe you get to university, then that means once you're done with university, then your success story can begin from there. So that's that mindset we had as youths, as teenagers when growing up.
So your parents paid for the university?
Yes, my parents paid for the university.
Nice. All right. Do you have siblings? Do you have any other brothers and sisters?
I have sisters. I'm the only boy. I'm the fourth boy amongst 4 girls. So
you're the youngest.
And I'm the most elder. Well, let's say I'm the elder of 5. No, let's say the elder of 5 children.
Oh, you're the oldest of all your siblings. Okay, I got you. So it's interesting what you said, because you just said that your success story can't begin until you finish university. It was in your head, that you had to, before your life could actually begin, you had to finish university. Is that what I heard?
That's more like a mindset that has been drilled into the minds of every teenager. So there are a lot of songs to even back that up. Like if you read your books, then in the future you'll be able to wear a good shoe. If you don't read your books, I mean, if you read your books, you get into the university, then you have a successful story. But if you don't read your books, you won't be able to get into university, then you have to like end up being someone that learns a trade. So there's that mindset that been drilled into teenagers while they were young, while we were all young. So we have that mindset to always, okay, I must get to university, I must get into the university. So that's it for.
It sounds like a lot of pressure. And then when you didn't get the score you needed, you must have felt really, how did you feel when you didn't get that cutoff score?
Yeah, I felt so bad. Like, man, it's so painful. Like you feel so bad. Like you feel dejected. You feel rejected. You feel like, God, I prayed, I read, I did all I could do, and sometimes such an individual becomes. I really don't want to say it could push someone to commit suicide, but I feel the pain behind you, an individual missing out, getting admission into university for 3 consecutive years can actually make him to have mental health issues, because among his peers, he'll feel like something is wrong with him. I don't know.
No, I get it, because they're ingraining in you from the time you're young that you got to be in university. You got to be in university. You're working hard. You don't get that score. Suddenly you're not in university, and it's like, well, you told me I can't be successful unless I'm in university. I mean, that has to be just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So, but your path to university was one where they allowed you to kind of take some classes and prove that you could be in university that way, right? Is that what you said? So you got to take some preliminary classes?
Yeah, exactly.
You take those preliminary classes, you realize that the university you're doing that in doesn't have the computer engineering you want, but they do have this thing called computer science, and you're like, okay, I'll do that, right? And then what did they teach you in that computer science degree that you got? What were they teaching you, programming at that point? What was that?
That was the first time I got exposed to programming. I would say that I actually never ever programmed, not until I got to the university. I was like, when I was 20, how old was I? I think 21 or 22, thereabouts.
So it took you 3 years to get into university from the time that you graduated. You didn't give up. But what were you doing in those 3 years? Okay, hold on a second. In the gap of the 3 years where you did not give up because you knew that you needed to go to university, what are you doing in between? You have to be working, you have to be making money, you have to be doing something.
At a point in time, things weren't so rosy for my parents anymore. So I actually picked up a teaching job. I taught as a teacher in a in a primary school. I once in a while put students through in maths. I was actually good in maths when I was in school, very good, such that I had to enroll. I had to provide training sessions for students who are also preparing for maybe what we'll call.
So you were like a tutor in a sense.
Yeah.
So you were teaching classes at second, and you were. I find it amazing that in the States here, you can't be a teacher without you got to finish your undergraduate university and then go towards your graduate. So they were letting you teach at the primary level without that. But that must have been nice. I mean, did you not think at some point that this could be my career, teaching and tutoring kids? It sounds like you didn't like it. It was just a means to an end to get into university.
I would want to say it's a means to an end. I needed to be able to support my parents. I'm not the only one who needs to get educated. So the others are lining up there to get educated. And I think my parents actually would have not really had up to 5 children if they had a boy after me or after my immediate junior. So, we're like 5. We're 5, and each of these 5 children also need to be educated. So now I'm done with secondary school, and I've tried to get admission to university. I couldn't get it. So I have to start supporting. When you're able to teach in a school, primary school, at that point in time, you get paid also for each month. At least you could give a little bit of support to your parents. So, but that was just it. It was just a means to an end.
But it was a good job. I mean, I think you must have been happy when you got that job, no?
Yeah.
Sounds like a good job. I mean,
it does, but it really, I think it depends on a couple of factors. Being a teacher at that point in time was not like what most youths of my age group would use as a second choice in terms of a career. Why I'll say that is we don't see teachers as people who are doing well in life, I would say, although they have the opportunity to be able to impact their knowledge. But that's just the way it is over here. So
basically, like if somebody asked you what you were doing, you would want to avoid saying that you were teaching?
Basically what I would say is I'm just managing somewhere in a primary school.
That's really interesting. I mean, I don't think we treat teachers well enough in the United States, but I think we respect anybody going into the profession because we know how difficult it is and how little it pays here in the US. So I find that super interesting that you almost have that same sort of perception. Okay, let's get going here. So you eventually get into university to do the computer science. What programming languages are you learning? At this point, you said you're 20, and we said 4 years. So you're 21, starting university, and it's a 5-year program. So you're not going to be done until you're like 26, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what year was it when you were 21? What year was it when you started university? We got to be talking 2004. 2004. Okay. So 2004, you're going to start your 5-year degree. We know you're not going to really be done until you're about 25 or 26. So what programming languages? So 2004, 2000. So you'll be done around 2009. Okay. So what programming languages are they teaching you? What kind of other courses are they teaching you here in this university?
The first programming language I ever encountered was Fortran 12. Is it Fortran 12? Yeah, Fortran. It was like, what is this all about? And being more of a mass-oriented student, when you're in university, you get to do courses from other departments, like you do maths, still do a couple of A-level maths. And while I was in the university, then I did some maths courses, and I was scoring my A's. The A's I was scoring for some of those maths courses were so high. I could score like the A itself the grade A starts with 70. For most of those maths courses, I could score like 80, 82, 83. So my A was actually high. So I was like, Is it not like, for instance, the three maths courses we did, I had like A's for all of them, and I was like, man, I think I'll be much more better in the maths. So I was even beginning to
you were thinking about becoming a mathematician at that point, right?
at that point in time.
Let me ask you a question then, because if your math skills are super high, so were you having problems with like reading comprehension? That's because in the U.S. you get tested on like math, and then it's all right. You get two kind of sets of scores. So what was slowing you down in terms of all the education? Obviously, it wasn't the math side of it. What classes were you not doing well in?
Yeah, the courses I didn't really do well in was, for instance, the Fortran programming language was a bit. Yeah, I just couldn't even get a good grip of it at first. The computer courses that were introduced to us in the first year was a bit technical to me. Why? Now, I will give you an instance. Imagine me, a computer science student. I don't have a system. I have no laptop. I have no desktop. I have no PC precisely. So it's affected me all through my first year, second year, third year. I couldn't get a system. I couldn't get even a desktop system. I couldn't even get one.
They didn't have a lab?
One.
Wait. They didn't have a lab where you could do your work?
Yeah, the lab is, they do, but our lab is not easily accessible. So we only go to the lab when you have your session, you have a class session that will demand for that. So you don't just go to the lab. The lab is not that big. It's a whole lot of system. The lab it's.
So how are you supposed to do your homework? How are you supposed to do your programming? You had to do it on paper?
Yeah, we did it on paper. So that's.
Oh my goodness.
So that's more of one of the drawbacks in my journey in computing. I discovered not having a system all through while I was in year one. I got a system when I was in year 5, the last year. And I was like, wow, if I had this earlier, I could have been able to do well.
Why were you able to get it in year 5? You finally had some money, you were working?
Yeah, at that point in time, I had to, okay, when you get to the year 4, the 4th year, you get to do your industrial training, like more like a training for, you get the opportunity to use 6 months to go do something related to your course of study. So I was opportunity to go to do something related to my course of study, and it was more of in a computer hardware firm where they manage computer hardware for most of the banks in Nigeria. So I got paid, and with the little money I was able to get, I was able to gather to get a desktop. So that was.
Oh, so it was almost like they get by year 4, you had almost, I guess, what we'd call an internship.
Yeah, internship. That's the right word. So I had a six month internship. So and that's like this the second part of the 4th year. Like every year in the university is like in 2 semesters. You have first semester and the second semester. So you get to do the internship in the second semester. And it was in the second semester I was able to that second semester where we go for internship, I was able to gather a couple of gather cash and then get the desktop, which I started using for my 5th year.
That had to be so hard. I remember my freshman year in university, they wanted to teach us assembly on a PDP-11, but there were no PDP-11s, and we all had to do it on paper. And I was like, I'm out of this university. I can't do this. And that's basically what you did for 4 years.
Yeah. So
that's tough, man.
Although I had a couple of friends whose parents were buoyant enough to get them laptops. Students who have laptops were looked up as, we're looking at them as gods. this guy's has the laptop. So laptop was a precious, like a precious stone. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
You having a laptop, you'll be respected. So that shows that your parents can afford to get you a laptop. So people who had laptops then were able to do it, I would say, a bit well, but we have to struggle all through. So one of the courses I did was in first year was Fortran, and that exposed me a bit, but I had to read and read. You know, you just keep on reading as if you are, it's not like maths, you read this and you can practice it. No, it's a bit different. So Fortran, then later on we got to do HTML. I was just like, what's this? Many of the courses I just did in computer related courses were done to build up our knowledge in computers. Computer was done by me in such a way that I also had to read to pass the course. Those courses. So we got to do HTML, we did PHP, no, we did Perl. Year 3, we did Perl. Yeah, same year 2. Sorry, year 2 we did Perl. Year 3 we did Java. We did assembly. So imagine we doing all those courses and you don't have a system. It's going to be tough. So
I don't know how you did it. Okay, so let's push forward a little bit. So you're able to at least start to get some internships at the end of this at your degree, and you do finish the degree, which is great. So do you have a job now as you finish this degree? Is it where you're interning, or you have to go find how easy is it, or how hard is it to find work in this field once you graduate?
Yeah, it's actually not easy. Why? Because once you're done with school, you still, as a student, in order to be done with everything that is expected of you as a graduate university, one is expected, every Nigerian youth is expected to serve the nation for a year. They call it, there's a program called NYSC. It's called National Youth Service Corps. So that program is meant for everyone who passed through the gates of a university to go through, and you serve. You as an individual from a particular state could be given an assignment in other states to serve the nation. And what that means is you could be posted to a school, you could be posted to a company. Some people could be posted to NGOs, federal organizations.
Okay, wait. I've never heard this before. So if you graduate university, you now have to do a year of service at either some government or non-government organization, and you have to do that for a year. I imagine that you're getting paid for that, because it sounds like they can assign you far away from where you live. I mean, it's got to be you're getting paid, right?
You're getting paid.
But they're going to tell you where you're going. You don't really have a choice.
You don't really have a choice, but still, some people still tweak it. They tweak it and they get, for people who are much more influential, whose parents work in big organizations, they can't get to. I mean.
But this doesn't sound like a bad deal, because it gives you an opportunity to get some work experience for a year, and you're getting paid. So what's the negative aspect of this service?
Yeah, the negative aspect of this service is that the most available, okay, out of 10 out of 100 youths that will be posted, let's see 90, or let's say 80 of them definitely know that they are going to teach in one very, very, very local secondary school or a local primary school somewhere in the rural areas. So
I see. You're going to have to go in country, out of the city, to teach at a really local. I mean, you're helping really areas of greater poverty, right? To go in there, and then you have to live there for a year. What was your service? I kind of find that really interesting and fascinating. I mean, how else would those communities find teachers otherwise, right? I mean, what's your feeling now as a 38-year-old about the service from a community and a country perspective? Do you think now, as you're older, that this is something that is good, or are you still? Because I'm getting a sense that as you graduate, you're like, oh no, they're going to put me in the middle of the country, and I don't want to be there. I really don't want to do this. But looking back at it now, as a 38-year-old.
Okay, apparently now I think it's good, but I feel we still believe it's more like a waste of time, because we tend to feel they took a year from us after we've, there's this popular saying that to get to the university in Nigeria, you have to strive to stay alive in Nigeria. You have to strive. Now you're done with the university, you still have to strive to make headways. But now, when you look at the number of years you've wasted, possibly before you got into university, so a couple of people could spend like 4 or 5 years, then you're now finishing with the university, then you're now being told to serve again for 1 year. So everything's like, these people are really taking a lot of years away from us, and somehow we just see that it has its own bad side, I would say. So that's just it. So in a way, we see it as being good, we're helping the nation, but still, to help the nation, we feel we're sacrificing our years to still help the nation. So somehow that is sweet, bitter taste in the mouth, I would say.
Where did you end up going for your service? Did you end up teaching in one of these local communities?
Yeah, I taught in a very local community. I was employed as a teacher who taught, who teach rather. I teach in maths, further maths, physics, then chemistry, then computer. So now I get to teach a whole lot of subjects, and sometimes you don't get to see people who can do this easily. People who can transition from one subject to another, even after leaving secondary school for 5, 6 years. So for the organization, for the school where I got to teach, I think they were lucky to have me, because I could still do well in chemistry, still do well in physics, but I didn't do biology, and was still able to do well in maths and further maths. Those are the core courses for science students. So those are the subjects I taught, and also computer studies.
What happens if you decide I'm not going to do this? They put you in jail? Like, is it that level serious?
If you decide that's why I said some other people who are that influence are able to tweak it and make their children go to where they want them to go. So you could be in a state and you are posted to like 5, 6 states away from where you are presently residing. And some parents would not want their children to go that far. So if you don't want your children to go that far, you could tweak it. You meet the right authorities and you tweak it. I believe that it's a little bit of influence. You have an influence, but it's not that they make it open that you can come around to tweak it. No, it's things. These are things that are done on the ground.
Right, but what are right? But that's I'm saying the consequence is to go to jail, though. For that.
No, you don't go.
Oh, you don't go to jail. So what happens? What if Henry says, I ain't going. What are you going to do about it?
You could actually end up not going and get to start a job, start a trade. I mean, get to what you want to do. Nobody will. But the truth behind is in those days, like there was this belief that you will always be asked for your NYSC certificate before you can get a job. So I think the laws in Nigeria then were like, I believe the laws are no more like that again now, but still yet, for you to get a job possibly at the federal level or at state or local level, and you happen to be graduates, you'll be told to present a couple of other stuffs and you'll be told to present your certificates, and if you had then done the service, you are at an upper, you will be given more of a merit.
No, essentially, you want to work for me, and I say, show me where you did your service, and you said, I didn't go, and I'm going to say, then I can't hire you. So basically, you were taking a risk in not doing it, both from an economic standpoint, but I would also imagine from a ethical, I don't know, or maybe moral standpoint, right? Because if you're in a group of people and they all did their service and you were like, nah, I didn't do it. I don't think that wouldn't look good for you either, right?
No, there, even among your peers, if you happen to be one of such who didn't do it, it doesn't really take anything off you. But I think the push to do it then was just basically to get to have all the requirements needed for you to get employment in many of these organizations. Like many of the multinational organizations requires you to they will put that particular certificate as one of their requirements. So you want to work in an oil company, like we have a couple of Chevron oil companies in Nigeria, Chevron, you have Shell, or you want to work in an indigenous oil company, NNPC. So they all require you to still have this. So I know everybody wants to work in an oil company. There's this drive to, I want to work in a very good place. And for most of the very good places, they'll require you, they'll get to ask you. Even banks, if you want to work as a worker in the bank, will still require you to have this. But in the recent printing now, things are not like that anymore. There are many more new privately owned organizations that don't really give a damn about the certificates, that certificating, as long as you can do the job. Yeah.
Okay, I get it. So we got like 15 more minutes left, so I want to make sure that we get some time here now after you do your service. I honestly kind of really love that idea of people doing service. I don't know why it had to be restricted to university, but I think there's something really, I don't think it was a waste of your time at the end of the day. I'm going to believe that as you get older, you're going to realize that wasn't, and I hear you saying, I already wasted 5 years to go through university, and now you're making me waste another year before I get into the job market. And that's interesting to me, but yeah, all right, but okay, so you finish your service, now you're unemployed, so we're now talking 2010, right? We're talking about 2010?
Yeah, 2010.
What do you do now, right? You come back home and you're unemployed now, but you got all this education, you did your service, so what's your next step? Is Nigeria your only option for work, or are there companies maybe in Europe, Asia, that are also hiring? Like, where do you go to now? Because I'm assuming you're looking for a programming job at this point too, or you don't particularly care what the work is?
At this point in time, I hadn't really gotten a good grip on programming, I would say, because of the structure that was on ground in the journey towards this part, towards me obtaining a degree. So the option was to try and just get a job that at least I could use to assist my parents, because at this point in time, things weren't going well too much for my parents, my mom and my dad. So I needed to just get a job. And the first job I got was a teaching job, still in a secondary school right now. So I taught again for like a year, no, like 8 months. And after which I decided to really now build myself in my career. So in trying to apply for tech-related jobs, and I have to sit down to ask myself, what really do I want to do what do I want to actually be in respect to the course I study? Do I want to be a software engineer? Do I want to be a database expert? Do I want to be a database admin? So that's where the thoughts started coming in. So, and I'm like, if I'm to be a software engineer, I have to go and get a good grip of programming. So I discovered I couldn't get a job directly as a fresh student because I don't have the skills at that point in time. So what I did was to just start training myself through the help of people or through other means. So luckily for me, then I met a guy. I saw a guy at the cyber cafe. I actually went to the cyber cafe. Now, if you in Nigeria, we have this. Okay, you want to get access to the internet, and there's a business like a center where people can go and buy time for internet access. You have a lot of options. You have a couple of systems you could use. You get what to use a system, they give you a system. And so it was in one of those periods I met a guy, I discovered he could build a website. And I was like, can you teach me how to do this? I went to school, but I think I was not able to get a good grip of it because I didn't have a system. So while I was teaching, I was able to get a system to use. Now, a laptop, that was the first time I was able.
So wait, hold on a second. So you're talking about like one of these like internet cafes that you'd be able to go and jump on a computer and access the internet, and you'd rent that out for an hour or two, right? So you were doing that, and you met somebody who was building websites. Did this person end up deciding to teach you how to build websites while you were there? He was doing that for free, or you had to pay him?
I had to pay him like 20,000 naira. I paid him to put me through. So he used Dreamweaver, and he just showed me a couple of things. And from there, and he gave me projects to work on. So
that's all right. So 20,000 naira is like just about $50 US. I mean, that seems like that had to be a lot of money for you at the time.
Yeah, that was exactly like the salary for a month. That was the salary for a month.
Yeah, it had to be a lot. So you paid him the 50, or you paid him the 20,000, and did he teach you what it is you wanted to learn? Were you able to start building websites? What was the first website you built?
I actually built, the first website I built is a site that was meant for a lawyer. I think he was into law. He's a lawyer, so, and he provided an NGO service. He provides an NGO service as at that point in time. So I had to use templates. What I mean is I use web templates. I just go online. I saw sites where you can download templates from, and I'll tweak the site.
Sure, I was doing that too back in the day. I mean, why not? That's the best way to go. Pick a style you like, download the template, and fill it in. Like, yeah. You've now learned how to build websites, right? It's got to be about 2011, 2012. You've got the Internet Cafe. This is around the time where you're finally able to buy your own laptop, you're saying. How much did you pay for the laptop? I mean, I can't even imagine what that, and it couldn't have been a new one, right? It had to be used, or was it new?
I bought there's what we call an empty laptop. I mean, a laptop that doesn't come with any operating system, or it's new, so that makes it much more cheaper. It's brand new. That's like an HP laptop without a Microsoft
With no
a
operating
Windows
system.
with no operating system, so it's new.
And how much did
So
you pay for that laptop?
That's like 60,000 naira then.
60,000. So like $145 US. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money, right? I mean, I guess I would say for a laptop, I don't know, maybe like for a laptop, $145, even in 2011, doesn't seem that expensive. Did you feel like it was expensive? I mean, I'm bearing cash, like that seems kind of reasonable, right?
It was, I saw it as being expensive. Why? Because the laptop I bought then was more, the specification for that laptop was more of on the medium, I won't say on the medium, I'll say currently now is on the low. A 4 gig RAM, let's say 500 gig hard disk, an HP 15 laptop, and the speed is the gig. I think the processor speed should be like 1.9 gigahertz.
I know, Henry, but it's faster than what you had before.
Yeah, so yeah, it was.
So what did you end up doing then? I guess you had to put Linux on it because you needed something that was free, right? Or did you put Windows on it?
Windows.
You got Windows on.
Yeah, there's a place in computer in Nigeria. They call it Computer Village, somewhere in Lagos. So you could just get a Windows and then you.
We don't want anybody going after Henry here. So you paid for your Windows license, Henry? Back then you needed that Windows, that key. I didn't pay for Windows for, I don't even know how long it was before I ever paid for a Windows license in some form or another. So you got Windows on there. Okay, so you have your laptop, you have Windows now. You're learning how to do web pages. We got like 10 minutes here. So we're just coming into that time now, 2012, 2013, where Go is starting to kind of pop up. So tell me here for the kind of the rest of the time we have, when does kind of Go pop up on your radar screen, and when is that the programming language you start learning?
Yeah, let me now make it a bit faster now. So in the year 2014, 15, I got a job as a software trainer. It's an organization where you train people with, you train students to learn how to write programs. So I was exposed to C, programming language. That was after getting my own laptop. So I taught students, like, imagine you teaching like 3 different groups of students on C, and you are going to use the same syllables. You know, it's more like you get good at it in a way. So that really helped me. Taught people on, 3 different groups of students on C. Then after which, once they're done with that, they need to get to learn Java. So in the course of that, I started getting good grips of the fundamentals of programming years after school. So gradually, I kind of left that job to be an Android developer. By the year 2015, I started seeking for a job as an Android developer because I felt, wow, Android is the happening thing then. So I made sure that while I was as a software trainer, I learned Java, core Java. And after that, I got a couple of jobs here and there as an Android developer. At least one of them lasted for a year. And after which, by the year 2017, I got called up for an interview somewhere in an organization. And getting to that organization, I passed, I did the exam, I did a text, and the text was in Java. You can use any language you wanted. So I decided to use, I think I used Java and I used C. Then the man told me they will be using a new language called Golang. I was like, what is Golang? Then I started like Golang. I never heard of that. And he gave me like 3 months to learn the language. I spent like 3 months learning this language. And I saw in a way, C helped me. I call C like, I see C as the Windows to all programming languages. So having gotten a good grip of C, a reasonable grip of C, I started learning Go. And man, I find it hard to relate with people saying Go is simple. Then at the same time, Go is simple, but when you try to read it to understand it, at first you get lost. So I'm like, how do you relate this? Go is on the site, you see on the Go site, you see it's a simple language. As in that's like, I think that simple word should even be erased. That's for me. I feel like Go doesn't look simple, with the convention of doing things. Go looks a bit different from the normal flow. So I was like, I can't do this language. So it got to a point I was almost leaving the job. But I think the same man who introduced me to this language kind of mentored me also and advised us that Go would be a language for the future. And I still didn't want to budge. I still kept on looking for other jobs. But along the way, I think I stayed with them for like 2 years and 9 months using Go. And ever since then, I was like, wow, this indeed is a language for the future.
Yeah, like that boss of yours was right? I mean, those 3 years were not a waste of your time. But you know what I find interesting about your story, Henry? Throughout your entire, say, working life, from the time you were, finishing secondary, university, all the way even till now, you've primarily have been a teacher, right? Like you always end up in the classroom one way or another. And even though it seems like you're saying that teachers don't have this high level of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like respect, which I find crazy. You always end up in one form or another back in the classroom teaching and mentoring. And I have a strong feeling that at work, you're constantly teaching and mentoring as well. And I have a strong feeling that you're going to be doing teaching again before this is all over. Do you find yourself doing a lot of mentoring and teaching in your job?
For the new software engineers that were employed in where I work, I think where I work, I got exposed to a couple of new ways of doing things, like getting to use testing tools or testing libraries. Like Testify is one of the libraries we use for carrying out tests. Writing tests for both the storage layers, for our MVC structure, for controllers, write tests for controllers. So I needed to be able to train some of these software engineers that were employed on how we get to write our tests, because using the tests, using Go inbuilt tests, for instance, most of us were more into using Go's inbuilt test, but with they coming in, with me getting to an organization where they get to use something different, and I've learned it, I needed to put these guys through, and when they have challenges, I put them through on how they resolve the challenges. So part-time, I get to mentor a couple of people, and sometimes I still do that to, not people in the organization where I work, but also people outside the organization where I work. So basically, yes, I still get to train people even in the university.
Yeah, I think your core DNA is teaching and mentoring, and it keeps coming back to that. And I find that super interesting. So, all right, we are out of time, Henry. I really appreciate you giving us the hour plus of your time to kind of tell your story. To me, it was fascinating because I don't know much about your country, and I have a little experience. So it was really fun and interesting to hear kind of how you grew up and all of that. If anybody has anything, if anybody wants to reach out to you after listening to this to ask you questions or need some mentoring, Henry, how could they find you on the internet? What's the best way for somebody to reach out to you?
Okay. The fastest way to reach out to me is via my Gmail, ERAB, then xylophone X, then egg, E for egg, then snake S.
We'll put that on the show notes. We'll put that on the show notes. So your email, your Gmail account, which will be in the show notes. What about Twitter?
On Twitter, my Twitter account is still using that same user ID, ERAB, xylophone X, then then snake S.
Gotcha.
At
All right.
Twitter.
That's all right. So we'll get that out too. I really appreciate your time, Henry. This was really fascinating. So thank you again for being on the show.
This is a great honor. I would say I never even expected that out of the blues. That I will be called up by the well-known Mr. Bill Kennedy to give my own journey and experience in terms of tech. I'm really honored to be put on this show.
Yeah, we're honored to have you. This is Bill Kennedy and Henry with the Ardan Labs podcast. Thank you for listening and hope to see everybody again real soon.